Observing the flickering blaze of the campfire, the extraterrestrial female vampire drifted towards me. Her initial words struck me with disbelief. Starting the fire was a poor judgment call. I recognized this even as I stooped in my dented survival suit, struggling to ignite a spark from the chemically treated twigs salvaged from the emergency kit. A fire was an inefficient choice. Not on a moon with minimal atmosphere and a near-zero probability of breathable air. It couldn't sustain life. My humming suit handled that, gently filling my lungs with recirculated optimism, yet the flame offered a different kind of essential. A primitive solace, unneeded warmth, desired illumination, and desperately lacking companionship. Even if that company was merely the phantom of a campfire, crackling in a lifeless impact zone. I sat cross-legged on a flat stone, my helmet removed. The air, though thin, was just dense enough here to inhale without immediate distress, though my eyes smarted slightly. The sky was 2/3 pitch black, the remaining third a canvas of cosmic graffiti, with streaks of nebulae swirling as if the universe intended to flaunt its beauty. A handful of stars mockingly shimmered. Up there somewhere, Earth persisted, likely still rotating and, more importantly, still disregarding my emergency beacon. I prodded the fire with a makeshift tool, a broken antenna rod, muttering to it like a borderline insane mystic. That's right, Blaze, do something useful. At least you react when I poke you. The fire's absolute silence instantly made it my preferred dialogue partner on this desolate rock. That was the moment I perceived her. A subtle movement, but enough to snap my spine rigid. A silhouette against the jagged lip of the crater, slim and motionless, observing. I strained my eyes through the firelight's haze, my heart thundering in my throat. My fingers creeped toward the plasma cutter on my belt, the nearest thing to a weapon I possessed, excluding my sarcasm. Then she advanced. Her gait suggested gravity owed her a debt. Fluid, purposeful, neither entirely human nor resembling anything I had ever encountered. She wore a dark, form-fitting garment that faintly absorbed light, rather than reflecting it. Her hair was silver, long and loose, trailing behind her like a cloak woven from moonbeams. Her skin was pallid, almost transparent, and her eyes by the stars above glowed a soft violet like two cooling suns. Her ears were elongated, elegant, and finely pointed, as if they could cleave the stillness. She appeared like an elf who had wandered into a research lab and chosen to reside there. I rose slowly, cutter in hand, my pulse pounding like a warning siren. "All right," I stated, my voice pitched too high. "If your intention is to consume me, be aware I'm heavy on sodium and light on resilience." She blinked once, tilted her head, then regarded the fire, and then she did the unexpected. She offered a small, melancholy smile. Her lips barely parted, and her voice when it arrived was velvet layered with frost. "I have not sensed warmth in 1,000 years." I gaped. The fire sputtered between us. I said cautiously. "You could have simply requested to borrow my jacket." Her gaze shifted to me. It wasn't predatory, nor was it simply curious. It held an ancient quality. "You are human," she uttered, as if presenting an indictment. "Last time I verified," I replied, waggling my wrist. "Watch still indicates existential dread." "Yes, still me." Her expression remained unchanged, yet the air around her seemed to sigh. She took another step, drawing closer to the flame. I remained rooted, primarily because my knees were locked in an intense discussion with my brain over whether fleeing or collapsing would be a more constructive move. "I am Verexa," she announced simply. "You roused me? Wonderful. That's just magnificent," I mumbled. "I crash-landed, depleted my supplies, and now I've awakened a cosmic vampire. Next on the list, ironic death by aggressive fauna." She looked at me with an intensity that made my blood contemplate reversing its flow. "I am not like the others," she said. I swallowed. "That's, reassuring." Her eyes softened fractionally. "You are frightened?" "Well, yes. I was hoping to perish in solitude. Now it appears I'll have company." Verexa's lips curved into something akin to amusement. She crouched by the fire, near enough for the flames to cast gold arcs across her face. "I remember this," she whispered. "Fire, laughter, life. We would assemble around these before the cold." I opened my mouth, then shut it. Because how does one respond to someone who speaks of fire as if it were a specter? The silence prolonged, broken only by the hiss of the kindling. Eventually, I extended one of the last nutrient bars to her. She accepted it as though she were uncertain if it was sustenance or an affront. Chocolate, I clarified. It won't revolutionize your existence, but it might improve your mood. She took a bite and smiled. A genuine one this time, complete with fangs. Oh good, a vampire. Verexa settled by the fire as if she had a claim on it. Perhaps she did. Maybe after a millennium in stasis, cryosleep, or timeout, a person earned the right to gaze into dancing flames with the melancholy of a poet facing a deadline. Initially, she said little, chewing the ration bar as if it were an alien compound, occasionally studying me as if debating whether I was worth engaging with or merely another example of evolutionary error. So, I began, massaging the back of my neck. I feel I should offer you a beverage, but all I possess is reprocessed water and enough caffeine tablets to revive a woolly mammoth. She looked at me, intrigued. Caffeine? Yes, a synthetic stimulant. It makes humans feel alive, which is ironic because an excess of it can kill you. She tilted her head. Your species is peculiar. Thank you. We invest considerable effort. Her gaze returned to the fire, which was reflected in her violet eyes, twin nebulae suspended in glass. For a prolonged moment she was mute, then softly she articulated, We subsisted on warmth. Not mere heat, not flame, but the kind that arises from proximity, from feeling, the resonance between consciousnesses, connection. I blinked. Are you implying you were psychic vampires? She didn't waver. We are, although the old terms do not entirely fit. Vampirism suggests an insatiable craving. We were symbiotic, mostly. Mostly, I echoed. That's reassuring, her lips quivered. Until the conflicts, until the stellar light diminished, until we selected silence over destruction. Yikes, I stated profoundly. So you froze yourselves. Our ultimate sanctuary, a vault beneath this moon. We believed time would erase the memory of our name. We were mistaken. So you're informing me I crash-landed on a moon that is fundamentally a buried crypt filled with ancient psychic space vampires? She looked at me without a trace of irony. Yes, and you roused me. Because of me. You activated a seismic beacon. It transmitted a pulse into the deep chambers. I was near the surface. I ascended. The others remained below. I rubbed my temples. Of all the moons in all the sectors and all the forgotten corners of the void, I had to plunge into this one. You are fortunate. I gave her a long stare. Define fortunate. You woke me, not them. There it was. That them shrouded in dreadful silence. I didn't press, partly because she was now absently touching the hilt of something curved and metallic at her hip I hadn't noticed, and partly because I suspected the answer involved sharpened points and a body count. We fell into a novel stillness. Not quite awkward, just new. My fire hissed. The sky above rotated slowly. The moons of other planets cast a faint glow across the crater. The stars seemed nearer, as if inclining to overhear. So, I prompted because silence made me restless. What occurs next? Are you going to deplete my precious human essence, or? She arched an eyebrow. You are remarkably irreverent for a man stranded without hope of retrieval. I grinned. Yeah, but I've got excellent facial structure. It evens out. Verexa exhaled a sound that could have been a soft laugh or a sigh. It was difficult to distinguish. I do not feed in that manner, she clarified. Not anymore. I have not connected with another consciousness in centuries. The need recedes when there is nothing remaining to feel. That is the most sorrowful statement I have ever heard, I admitted, and I once observed a man weep because his sandwich drifted away during a zero-G picnic. A pause, then a soft, rusty chuckle, as if her voice had forgotten the mechanism. I smiled. Progress. As night deepened, if you could use that term when the stars were perpetually awake, we conversed. Not about profound topics, but about utter trivialities. I recounted Earth's obsession with domesticated cats, which she found bewildering, and then described my work mapping dead worlds for resource potential. I omitted the detail that my employer, Zenith Corp., would likely not dispatch a rescue, given the weak signal and the acceptable loss clause in my contract. She spoke of her people, the Merrians, how their vessels once sailed the ion currents of collapsing stars, and how they wove emotion into their architecture, their cities designed to amplify connection. We sculpted sound, she said, constructed homes that resonated, now all gone save for her. She leaned in, her hand hovering near the flame. The heat shimmered against her skin, which I noted did not perspire and likely had no need to. "I envy this," she murmured. "This minor, luminous defiance. You ignite it to repel the darkness, fully aware it cannot last." I nodded quietly. "It's the same reason we tell jokes." She looked at me. "To delay the conclusion?" "No," I countered. To spit in its eye, that extracted a true smile from her. A genuine one. And for an instant, beneath the stars and the crater's ancient stillness, I didn't feel completely isolated. The next night the fire was smaller, reduced to a lazy glow nestled in its shallow depression. I fed it the remaining synthetic kindling strips, tossing them in one by one as if offering crumbs to a very diminutive, highly flammable deity. The sky above remained pitch black and constant. This moon's rotation was too sluggish for the theater of sunrises or sunsets. The stars simply hovered, observing as if awaiting the punchline of a protracted cosmic joke. Verexa reappeared just as I was deep in a soliloquy, attempting to justify to the fire why I was psychologically unprepared to consume the final serving of my teriyaki nutrient block. Texture variant B. She emerged from the gloom like an unintended thought, silent, fluid, clad in the same somber suit and bearing the same indecipherable demeanor. However, her posture was different this evening, taut, intensely coiled. She didn't settle immediately. "Something amiss?" I inquired, shuffling over to clear space on the flattest lunar stone I had designated my seat. "There was activity beneath," she stated, her voice subdued as though she feared the crater might be listening. "In the deep strata, the vault is restless." "All right," I said, stretching the word out like anxiety-flavored taffy. "That's not foreboding." "Not in the slightest." Verexa finally took a seat, her gaze fixed on the fire. "The seismic surge you initiated did more than just wake me. It may have agitated others." I stared at her. "Others like you?" She didn't reply at once. Instead, she accessed a small compartment on her belt and withdrew a thin, folded membrane, a sheet of memory carbon that unrolled into a holographic map shimmering with faint blue light. "There are 7 vaults. I was placed in isolation, containment. The rest were not peaceful." "Oh, excellent," I sighed, pressing my forehead into my palm. "I have awakened an ancient menace. I am that guy now." Verexa indicated a flickering note on the map. "This one, it is live. The stasis field is deteriorating. It might already be breached. Breached like someone forgot to update the operating system, or breached like space werewolves are about to emerge." Her eyes slid to mine. "More the latter," I exhaled slowly. "Naturally it is." The holographic chart hummed softly between us. She tapped another icon, and the projection shifted to display a cross-section of the inner vault. Honeycomb architecture of layered metallic crystal, pulsing with soft illumination and an uncanny symmetry. I leaned in, compelled despite my fear. "This technology is vastly superior to anything I've encountered. How long ago did your people create this?" She glanced at me. "Before your star had cooled sufficiently for Earth to develop oceans." "Oh, neat. So just mildly outdated." Verexa dismissed the map with a quick motion of her fingers. "We must proceed there. The containment must be restored." "Let me guess," I offered. "You require my assistance because I possess opposing thumbs and a history of poor judgment?" "You are the only other mind I can rely on," she stated bluntly. I stared at her. "Wow, your standards are tragically low." She smiled, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. "Then let us move with haste." The route to the vault was a path carved by weathering and eons, snaking through jagged peaks like a deep-etched scar on the moon's surface. We traveled on foot, my suit stabilizers compensating for the low gravity, while Verexa glided alongside me with the effortless grace of a ballerina, who also happened to be a high-priority threat on every galactic watch list. We spoke little en route, but she did halt once to inquire, "Do all humans vocalize when they are experiencing nervousness?" "I was not singing," I protested. Indignant, "You repeated the phrase, 'Don't die today,' to the melody of a composition called Boogie Shoes." "Right. That's a motivational mantra, highly sacred, passed down through generations of terrified simpletons." Verexa nodded gravely, as if making a mental note. "I understand." The vault's entryway was obscured beneath a blanket of collapsed rubble, but she located the control node under the dust, a small obelisk, its surface laced with pulsing symbols. She pressed her hand against it. Her skin flared with light where it met the stone. A low rumble reverberated beneath us. "Is it supposed to do that?" I asked. No, she replied. The stone parted with a hiss, revealing a descending passageway lined with living metal and light, and from the depths below something shrieked. Not a sound precisely, but more like the memory of a scream, a mental resonance that made my teeth ache. Verexa tensed. One has awakened. I reached for my plasma cutter, which suddenly felt pathetically small. How many are we dealing with here? She turned to me, her eyes lit like twin supernovas. If we are fortunate, only one. The tunnel gaped below us, wide enough to engulf a dreadnought and just as inviting. Light throbbed along the walls in rhythmic patterns that unsettled my stomach, as if the architecture itself possessed a pulse. I followed Verexa down, attempting to walk with confidence while my suit's internal diagnostics quietly flagged atmospheric anomalies and unidentified radiation sources. Honestly, I was just relieved the air didn't reek of vampire. This place gives me the jitters, I muttered. Verexa glanced back. The vault was engineered to induce confusion, a preliminary defense mechanism. The pathways reconfigure for intruders. Fantastic, I said. So it's a haunted house inside a labyrinth. All we're lacking is a guy with a rotary saw and maternal issues. She offered no response, likely because humor is not a high priority when you are preoccupied with ancient psychic assassins stirring beneath your feet. But the further we descended, the more I required jokes to maintain my composure. Humor is my emotional shock absorption. The corridor walls became more bizarre. What began as elegant metallic stone now shimmered with embedded fibers, strands of biolight that reacted to our presence, illuminating symbols and designs I couldn't begin to decipher. I brushed one with my glove and felt a static charge ripple up my arm. The vault didn't just sense us. It perceived us. I don't suppose this structure features an elevator? I asked, eyeing the ever-downward slope. We did not favor superfluous automation, Verexa stated. Right. Because nothing screams advanced civilization like stairs. Finally, the corridor opened into a chamber so vast it made my brain recoil. The ceiling arched so high above us that it vanished into mist or perhaps a cloud of engineered nanodust. I had long since stopped trying to tell the difference. In the center of the space stood a structure, a spire of crystalline panels spinning slowly, vibrating with a frequency I could feel in my bones. That is the containment matrix? I asked. Yes, Verexa confirmed. Or it was. She stepped forward, frowning. I followed, and that's when I noticed it. Hairline fissures ran along the crystal surfaces like veins in a dying leaf. One of the panels had already shattered inwards, revealing a hollow core lined with what looked like sleep pods. Except only one was still intact. The rest were vacant. Okay, I whispered, my plasma cutter suddenly providing even less comfort. Now would be an excellent time for an instructional guide. Or perhaps a really passive-aggressive warning placard. Verexa's fingers moved swiftly over the matrix interface, manipulating panels, realigning filaments. The vault responded, flickering with spectral data as though reluctant to awaken. A projection ignited into life. A tall figure with elongated limbs and long ears like Verexa's, but twisted at odd angles. His eyes were jagged slices of black, as if something had excavated them and left only the darkness behind. Meet Karun, she said, her voice strained. He was once our leader, a scholar. Then something shifted. He believed emotion itself was frailty. He sought to disconnect us from connection, to transform our abilities into weapons. Cool, I said. So you sealed him in here with company? Yes, she confirmed. Now only he remains. The projection shifted. Karun's image turned toward us, and although it was only a recording, I could feel the phantom of his presence. A mental pressure like a door attempting to open inside my skull. I won't lie, I admitted. I think I just heard my own thoughts insult me. He is transmitting, Verexa said grimly. Searching for minds, identifying weaknesses. Well, he's going to find an abundance right here. I'm primarily held together by snark and dehydrated noodles. Then something in the projection changed. The image of Karun blinked, looked directly at me, and smiled. I do not appreciate that, I said, stepping back. No one should ever smile like they know the address of your childhood trauma. Verexa positioned herself between me and the image. We need to reseal the matrix. I must use my link to override the remaining nodes. And my role? You keep him preoccupied. Oh, wonderful, I said. I'll just juggle or something. But before I could make another ill-advised comment, the vault shuddered. A wave of force rippled across the floor, and from the shadows near the edge of the spire, something emerged. Tall, gaunt, and very much not a projection. His presence struck me like the shattering of glass in a confined space. Karun was conscious, and he was smiling at me. Karun entered the vaulted chamber like someone arriving fashionably late to his own apocalypse. Impossibly tall, with skin the hue of a lunar shadow and ears that arched back like intricately carved obsidian blades. His eyes were unfathomable, not in a romantic, profound sense, but in the manner of black holes, places where light surrenders to oblivion. He moved as if he possessed personal exemption from gravity's laws, and each stride was accompanied by a subtle whisper I couldn't place, like old cold metal reminiscing about its former sentience. Naturally, I yielded to panic in the time-honored human tradition. "Hello," I managed, my voice breaking like a teenager's at a school dance. "You've got a great setup here. Very eternal, void chic." I admire the terrifying architectural choices. Verexa didn't respond with amusement. She was too preoccupied manipulating the spire, her elongated fingers flying across the crystal controls. Light erupted and dimmed with every touch, panels rearranging and spinning like a complex puzzle being solved one agonizing step too late. Karun cocked his head. "You are not Merrian," he stated. His voice was distorted like thunder transmitted through faulty audio equipment. "Nope," I countered, retreating, my weapon raised, though it felt as effective as a plastic spoon in a hurricane. "Name's Eli, professional explorer, congenital disaster magnet." He advanced another step, and I could have sworn the temperature plunged 10 degrees. "But you radiate warmth," he observed. A mind unshielded, software curious and exposed. I glanced at Verexa. "He's not attempting to woo me, is he? Please confirm that this isn't what's happening." Karun let out a low sound like ice fracturing across a frozen sea. I recall the initial warmth I consumed. It shrieked. "Right," I said. "We are officially back in the not flirting zone. Glad we cleared that up." Then he lifted his hand. No weapon, no theatrical gesture, just a slight rotation of his wrist. And I felt it, a pressure non-physical yet emotionally suffocating, like something slipping behind my conscious thoughts, searching for weak points to exploit. "Verexa," I shouted, my voice trembling. "A little assistance." She didn't react, too deep in the override sequence. The spire was now radiating spiraling fractal data patterns. I spun back toward Karun, concentrating every ounce of stubborn human will into my mind. "Listen, friend," I challenged. "I know you're some high-ranking ancient space vampire with a god complex, but I possess 3 things you do not." He paused. "Do enlighten me. 1, a sense of humor. 2, a caffeine addiction. And 3, I dove forward, firing the plasma cutter at the nearest crystal node just behind him, causing it to erupt in a blinding white flash. Terrible aim, but the chamber convulsed. Karun staggered, not injured but shocked, perhaps even slightly impressed. I scrambled for cover behind a cracked support pillar, my heart pounding like an overzealous percussion section. "Eli!" Verexa cried out. "I require more time." "Of course you do," I yelled back. "Time is everyone's favorite resource. Who needs oxygen when you have time?" Karun appeared on the opposite side of the pillar, silent and sudden. His hand reached for me, and I could feel memories being siphoned from the edges of my mind, leaking like liquid through shattered glass. Then came a pulse, sharp and harmonious like a tuning fork resonating inside my brain. Verexa stood at the core of the spire, her figure illuminated from within. Her eyes burned brighter than I had ever seen them. 2 stars reignited. "Karun," she pronounced, her voice layered with echoes. "You are not permitted here." He turned to face her, the first hint of hesitation flickering in his expression. "You are solitary. You cannot restrain me." "No," she corrected. "But we can." And in that instant she extended her hand toward me. A thread of light arced between us, thin, vibrating, and warm. I didn't deliberate. I grasped her hand. In that fleeting moment our minds merged. I witnessed fragments of her past, suns expiring in slow motion, cities of light dissolving into silence, laughter echoing within crystal towers. She witnessed mine, earth crowded, cacophonous, and messy. My mother's touch, my old cat Maxwell, who proudly destroyed potted plants, and my preferred terrible film, which I watched 14 times because it felt like home. Emotions surged between us like fire through dry tinder. Karun reeled, hissing. No, connection is weakness. No, Verexa replied softly. Connection is resistance. Together we channeled that torrent of shared experience and warmth into the spire. The vault responded instantly, panels snapping into configuration, beams of light piercing the chamber. Karun howled, stumbling backward as the air vibrated around him. He was being drawn back, not physically but mentally, psychically, pulled into the core where the final sealed pod awaited. I saw his face as the field solidified. It was not fury. It was terror, and then he was gone, sealed once more. The chamber descended into silence. I slumped to the floor, hyperventilating. Well, that went smoothly. Verexa, now glowing slightly less dramatically, sat beside me. You exhibit unusual tenacity for your species. I nodded, still catching my breath. And you are terrifying, but in a majestic space queen kind of way. She smiled. This time it reached her eyes. The silence that followed Karun's resealing was so profound it felt as if the vault itself were exhaling. After millennia of constraint, the spire's hum subsided to a gentle thrum like a vast engine idling. Light still pulsed through the crystalline walls, but it was now steady, soft, no longer fraught with tension. I lay on my back, gazing up at the ceiling, so high it might as well have been the void. My heart was still attempting to synchronize with my lungs, and my legs had made a firm commitment to permanent rest. So, I began, between ragged breaths, when were you planning to disclose that you possess the ability to psychically link minds with people? Verexa crouched beside me, her long ears flicking slightly in what I was beginning to recognize as amusement. The appropriate moment had not yet arisen. And what would you call that back there? An opportunity? Because I label it a live-action fever dream. She offered me her hand, and I accepted. Her grip was firm, warm, and steady, not what I would have expected from an ancient vampire who once napped in stone caskets as a lifestyle choice. We ascended out of the vault together, retracing our steps through the corridors. This time they did not shift beneath our feet. Whatever intelligence governed the vault's architecture now recognized us. Or perhaps it was simply relieved not to be the dwelling place of a psychic death deity any longer. Outside, the stars hadn't shifted, but something in the air had changed. The moon felt different, lighter. Karun won't escape again, I asked as we reached the crest of a ridge near my campfire site. Not within this cycle, Verexa replied. The vault's energy is finite. Containment will hold until it is depleted again, perhaps in 1,000 years. I gave her a look. Comforting. I'll just jot that down on my great-great-great-grandchildren's calendar. She halted and looked up at the sky, at the familiar, unblinking, eternal sea of stars. He sought to obliterate connection, to sever what defines our reality. And you reminded me. Yeah, I have that effect, I interjected. Show up uninvited, cause chaos, accidentally reset your emotional wiring. It's a talent, she tilted her head. You are altered now, I considered that. I thought about how terrified I had been that first night when she stepped from the shadows and claimed she hadn't felt warmth in 1,000 years. I thought about how I used to fill silences with jokes just to avoid hearing my own thoughts about how I had come here to be alone. And now, I didn't want to be. Yeah, I conceded. Maybe I am. We returned to the campsite. The fire had died out, but a few embers still glowed as if awaiting us. I knelt and prodded them with a stick, adding a sliver of old polymer packing foam. The flames rekindled with a quiet sigh. Verexa sat opposite me. This time she didn't hover like a specter. She drew her knees in close, curling her long fingers around a steaming cup I handed her. A thermal mug of repurposed hydrogel that vaguely resembled tea. What is this? She inquired, sniffing it with suspicion. Mintish, I said. Or at least the machine claims it is. Earth flavor descriptions are occasionally optimistic. She took a sip, her ears perking up slightly. It is not entirely disagreeable. That is the highest commendation I have ever received for my cooking. We sat there contemplating the fire. No monsters, no collapsing vaults, no echoes of ancient minds screaming through our skulls. Just two individuals who had survived something peculiar together. Two people with very little in common except perhaps the weariness of being isolated for too long. So, I said after a long silence, what happens now? Verexa looked up at the stars again. Now I must decide who I wish to become. Join the queue, I responded. I'm still figuring that out myself. But if you're not busy, I hear there's a derelict science outpost orbiting the next moon. that might have a functional comm array and a vending machine that exclusively accepts sarcasm as payment. She arched a delicate brow. Are you inviting me? I'm not formally labeling it a date, I clarified. But if you appear, I will share the remainder of my teriyaki nutrient block, texture variant B. A smile tugged at the corner of her lips. You do present persuasive offers. We watched the fire diminish once more. There was no urgency in the moment, no impending danger, just space and time and the realization that we were no longer solitary. The flames flickered above us. The stars twinkled, and somewhere in the distance the universe continued its course, feeling just a touch warmer than before.